Hello, my friends. I hope you're well, and welcome to a brand new podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to Christine, who does branding. There you go. Did your interview for you.
Thank you.
Why does branding... I wasn't going to start here, but I think it's important to talk about it. We live in a world where there's lots of noise on social. There's lots of AI conversations. There's lots of points of view when it comes to what should I be doing, should I not be doing. Why do you focus on branding?
I focus on branding because a lot of businesses are completely overwhelmed when it comes to marketing. They really don't know where to start. They don't know what they're doing. And I was finding that doing visual branding, logos and stuff like that with clients, I was finding that at the end of the project, they still didn't understand what their business was actually selling. So by doing brand strategy, which is what we're really talking about here, it's about understanding exactly who you are, what your business is, your positioning, and everything else that's involved, and then that gives you a core to work from when it comes to marketing. So it sets your tone of voice and all the rest of it, and then you can take it from there. So
I think there's so much there, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of it. But for me, I've been in a very interesting place the last month or two. I've been very focused on growth. I've been very focused on client delivery. I've been in a very grateful place because of the amount of work I've got going on. And as I was setting up, we were sort of talking a little bit about kind of all the plates I'm currently spinning and some of the concerns that maybe come with that when you see someone like me doing that. And I think it's a very action-led thing, but I'm not focused on the outcome. I'm not focused on the result. Yeah, of course I want it to happen and I would like it to happen, but I'm purely just focused on the journey of getting there and saying, right, I've got to do this, this, and this, and my action will compound across time to then mean that I've got the successful podcast, I've got the successful business, I've got the successful marketing. To phrase it in a question, when you look at someone's branding, maybe you're helping them with branding, they're looking at rebranding, etc. I mean, is it to an extent a level of just they need to execute on the brand that works, or is there glaring issues that someone could have with their brand that would then trigger you to say, actually, you should be looking at a rebrand? Do you think?
I think a lot of the time businesses evolve, and so they try different things and they don't know necessarily where their ideal clients are. They don't know the type of work that's the sweet spot or anything like that. So it's very tempting to kind of take everything that kind of comes in and then you end up juggling plates. But in actual fact, once you've sort of established your brand and gone through exactly what it is you are looking for, you become very much more focused. And that's the core to everything really with taking on work. I mean, it may be that then you turn down work because it's just not appropriate to your end game. So yes, I think.
Do you think clients struggle with saying no sometimes?
Oh yeah.
Because I think there's a mindset of, in some ways, you could say it's there's going to be no more work out there. The work's not going to be there. I haven't structured my finances or my business. And so, this was a problem I had in end of 23 into 24, which was I was overspending every month in comparison to what was coming in, right? Yeah. And I wasn't doing the financial work to build a foundation to allow me to be able to have the freedom to be lean enough from a cash flow point of view to do the other growth things that I needed to do to continue to then grow. But I was coming from a place of, I need this to make me money today. I need this to make me the money next week because I have bills at the end of the month that, to be honest, at that time, I didn't know where the money was coming from.
Yeah, and that's typical, especially in the early days of running a business. But the problem is you become so busy running around doing those jobs, and I'm just as guilty of it. You become so busy running around doing those jobs that you haven't got the time, the bandwidth, or the brain space to actually think about the fact that it's really not going to help where you go. Yeah. I mean, it becomes very much a feast and famine, as we were saying before coming on air. That you spend all your time running around, and you don't set up the next work and things. It's just not top of mind. And I think that's one of the key things about setting down. exactly where you want to be, the type of clients you want to be working for, your position in the marketplace, etc., etc. Like I say, you become very blinkered then.
I think there's lessons and stages, right? I think I'm always of the mind where I'm very grateful that happened, and that I nearly lost the business multiple times. And I would actually argue it's made me and my partner a lot stronger, because she's seen another side of me. Like now, everything's sunshine and rainbows in comparison, right? Yeah. But I think for me, it gave me a real reality check, because I'm sure some who know me would be like, oh, Colin's very egotistical, he's very, he thinks he's the bee's knees kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, but actually I know I've got a skill set now that's, when my back's against the wall, I'm in a corner, I know I can get out. Yeah. And I think that for me, that's a different power, if you could say, a different confidence, a different resilience. And I think that's the thing that's maybe lacking. When we first spoke, we talked a lot about AI, and I'm sure we'll get into AI, but like for me, I'm seeing kind of people who are lacking resilience in the respect to how the turbulent market, like you can look at geopolitics, you can look at like general politics, you can look at what are Labour about to do with like changes to corporation tax and et cetera. But I always look at it and go, okay, well, can I affect or change any of these things? Can I affect and change what's going on in the market and how business confidence is? Not really. So, yes, I need to be aware of what's going on and what opportunities are there. But actually, the only thing I should potentially be blinkered on is the things you were talking about in regards to positioning, focus, and output. But also, what am I doing to develop? What am I doing? This podcast came from an idea and now I'm executing on it. It's not... I think some people, and to phrase it into a question, it's going to be like people have ideas and then they don't execute on the ideas, right? I mean, why in your experience do you think people do that?
I think part of the problem at the moment, or for the last few years, has been this idea that, and it's probably going to sound very controversial, but there's a lot of talk about things like niching down. Now, it can go to an extreme, I think, and what we really need to be doing is finding ways of being adaptable, because with ever-changing markets and that, the people that survive are the ones that are going to adapt. So while it's great to niche down, if you niche down too far, you can really struggle when things change. So it might be useful to say that you work in a particular industry, but if you just say that you work in that industry, that's when you're going to struggle, if that industry then suffers. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's all about adaptability.
Do you think people niche because it's easier for them?
The general attitude seems to be that you can make more money by niching.
I heard that.
So there are a lot of designers out there who have niched down and just say that they work in a particular industry. Now, I don't do that. I have worked in certain industries and I can push those if I wanted to. But for me, if I was to niche down too much, I'd be bored out of my brain, because, the same challenges come across all industries generally. So it's, it doesn't really matter whether one week you're doing something like for branding for a care company, and the next minute you're doing something for something in the aviation industry or plumber or whatever. So it's the same problems, just with slightly different issues that come with those industries. But everyone's generally facing the same sort of issues. And obviously, I've got enough experience to be able to do that.
Do you think you need resilience to be able to be that like open? I mean, I've always been of the view that you shouldn't niche specifically into an industry, because I always use the example of like, say that to wedding videographers during COVID, for example, right? It's like, how'd that go? But I think for me, like, I get it, I get why, and I've worked with some people who are very specifically niche and it's worked for them. But for me, I also think maybe it's an authenticity thing. For me, I'd be like, I don't feel that's authentic to me. I wouldn't enjoy it. I wouldn't be able to do my best work if I was I'm just going to serve educators. Yeah. I'm just going to serve accountants. I'm just going to serve designers. I'm just going to, etc. I'm just going to do podcasting because I like. Well, one of the reasons why I went into business for myself was so I could have the variation.
Yep.
So I could have the location variation. If one day I'm in Southampton, then I'm in Salisbury, then I'm in London, then I'm then I'm in Newbury, so on.
Yeah.
But then also, one day I'm going to be doing podcasting, next day I'm going to be doing a promotional video, then I'm going to be doing a conference, then I'm going to so on. That variation regarding the work I do, but also the freedom that comes with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well. And it's the same with design. It's problem solving at the end of the day.
I think so many people, they look at, because they only see the success stories when it comes to niching, right? Just focusing on that briefly. Like they see the when it works, but they don't see the ones that did it and then actually lost money, right? Or made less money or the same money. And again, like to reiterate it, I think for me it's the authenticity piece. It's like, what else did you do outside of business? And I think making lots of money to a level could be a reason why you're in business. Sure, people do that, but actually I've just filmed Maddie's piece and we ended it by saying, like, are you living to work or working to live?
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's to have the freedom to be able to market the business and work with the clients I choose to want to work with. Yeah. And to an extent, I have to charge a premium for that because it means I'm going to limit my amount of client delivery. But also because I've built my business in a retained model now, I'm actually less likely to take the wrong projects because I don't need the revenue.
Yeah.
Like I don't need it. So then it's a question of, does it actually apply to my goals? Does it help me grow? Is it a really nice project? Is it a really fun project? Is it the right client, etc.? And then I can look a bit deeper into the relationship that I'm trying to build rather than just the transactional side of it of, right, I need to make £1,000. I need to make 500 quid. I need to make 10 quid, whatever it is. And I think sometimes how do you look at it from when you are approached to do some project work? Do you look at it purely from, are you the best fit as a designer, or as a brand, like depending if it's a rebrand, etc., or like the work, depending on the tangible work you're doing, or is it purely in some context actually they're going to pay me 10 grand?
No, I mean there's potentially clients that I wouldn't necessarily work for. I haven't really kind of come across any because they haven't. That's not the kind of client that would necessarily approach me. But if I don't think that I'm the best fit for it because I don't understand what they're doing or whatever, or just didn't get on with the people. Because at the end of the day, when you're working with someone, particularly with branding, brand strategy, the general consensus is probably that, if you're doing it, it's a case of you hand it over to someone to do. I don't work like that at all. For me, it is very much a case of I work with you. And the more involvement you have, the more you will get out of it. So it is a two-way partnership. And I'm basically facilitating it. So I'm asking the questions and I'm digging deep and I'm challenging your thinking about everything that you're saying so that we can get to the nub of exactly what's what. And sometimes that will involve sitting there with my arms crossed. I've done this before, where I'm not getting anything from someone. So it's a case of, actually, sell me what you're saying because I don't get it. And almost being slightly aggressive, defensive sort of thing. But it's a way of kind of getting them on the back foot to then get into the nuggets of what's what. Now that's a just one-off example, but that's not normal. But I'd like to come back to what you were saying about the type of work that you were doing, because to a certain degree, that's niching in a way, in that you're choosing your market sector. So some people would say that that's niching, but it's really just deciding what your position is in the marketplace and who it is you want to work for.
I think it's about, like, there's a lot of conversation at the moment about, especially from like Alex Hormozy and others like that, talking about the model of your business, right? Yeah. And I think for me, one of the things I may have got wrong in my early career was not understanding a sustainable model, right? As a career, I think maybe even a niche is now becoming a buzzword, yeah. Right? And I think for me, it's more about being authentic, and that's why I lean into authenticity more, because it's about, for me, saying, is this the right client? Right? I can personally work with them, like tangibly, can I talk to them if things go wrong? Are we going to be able to work through those? And then B, more importantly, can I actually add value to that client? Right? Can I be the provider to fix their problems? Because in 95% of cases, we're paid in relationship to the size of the problem that we fix.
Yeah.
Right? And to be honest, the client doesn't actually necessarily care about the nuts and bolts of how you fix it. In 95% of the cases that I've found, they don't. They're not interested in what camera am I going to use, what lens am I going to use, what tripod are we going to use, what microphone are we talking into, etc. They just want to know, I've got this thing, I've got this problem, I've got this objective. Can you help me get closer to that? Or can you help me get to it?
Yeah.
I mean, going back to basics then, with branding, how do you build a brand? Does it have to be around you?
What, as an individual?
Yeah, so when you're looking to build a business, let's say I was starting again.
Okay.
How would I build a brand?
Okay. Well, we do use a framework generally to establish the core values and positioning and all the rest of it. It's one of those things where, what do you want to do with the business? That's where we've got to start, really. What do you want to do with the business? Where do you want it to go? Do you want it just to be you? Because that's the key thing. If it's just going to be,
is that looking tangibly at, like, do you want to exit? Do you want to sell? Like, etc.
Are you going to have staff? All that sort of thing. Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Where do you want to be in 10 years' time? Because if you're looking to build an empire or an agency or something like that where you've got staff, there's no point building a personal brand. Well, there is a point, but do you know what I mean? The business cannot be your personal brand, because going forward, that's not going to work. You've got to build a business brand. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because your staff are going to have to come under that brand. So
do you think people worry about scalability? Because what you're talking about there is scalability. Do you think people worry about scalability too much? Because I would argue, like, depending on how you look at it, your personal brand is either infinitely scalable or not scalable in any way, depending on your mindset around it. So the one thing I'll never be able to outsource is me sat here in front of you today, because I need to be involved in the content.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So in that respect, it's not scalable. But the more content I have, it's infinitely scalable.
It is, but what I'm saying is, it's how you then put that out. Do you put it out as you, or do you put it out as the business? Mm-hmm. Do you have a business name, like I do, separate to the to my own brand, me? Because if you are going to have staff, you cannot just rely on your personal brand. I mean, I remember years ago I went to an interview with somebody whose attitude was very much, well, I'm the face of the brand. Which was fine, but it just meant that he couldn't have a sales guy go out on his behalf, because that wasn't the face of the brand.
Do you think that can transition, though? Do you think, like, when a business starts, it's very founder-led, let's say?
Yeah.
Right? So in my case, it's 100% founder-led, right? When you have a discovery call, you're talking to me. I show up on set, you're talking to me, you're working with me. When we do the strategy meeting, it's me. When you're doing the post-editing, it's me. But if I choose to, right? One of the main visions that I had was, let's scale it. I think they can work simultaneously.
It depends where in the growth process you actually come in with this, really, doesn't it? I mean, yes, if it's at the very start of a business, but what I'm saying is those are the questions that we ask for going forward. Because if you are going to stay as a freelancer or as a solopreneur, whatever, then build your personal brand, because that's probably got more equity long term than your business. But
do you think
that's
Do you think clients and consumers are more open to connecting with people's personal brands than company brands then? Because I've found personally, looking at, like, the corporate side of the world, that even corporates are now, like, driving out saying, who can we put maybe in the C-suite, or, like, who can we put out that is the personal brand for the corporation? So I think it's because I remember listening to a couple of years, about 2 years ago now, and it's kind of transitioned as well into 25 as well, where corporate trust is at an all-time low. I don't know if that's still true now, but it definitely was a couple of years ago. And I think part of the reason is because they stopped being personal. Yeah. They stopped having this. You stopped knowing the salespeople. You stopped knowing the business owner. Yeah. You stopped knowing the person that was behind it. And it became very... And that was kind of the transition into AI as well, because it became very just about profit and about ROI and about, like, how can we leverage this and how can we be as efficient as humanly possible? And humans aren't efficient by proxy. We're not robots, right?
No.
But I guess to phrase it into a question, I mean, do you think that looking at the larger scale, or maybe with the corporate world, because like our unique selling proposition to smaller business owners is we can be personal, we can be me, right? Because that's what we sell. That's our, we're not scalable by proxy, by deliberate. Do you think corporates should be looking at personalising their business brands?
What happens when the person leaves? If it's a person, if they've moved company, then what? What is that person putting out? Are they putting out stuff that's on brand with the company's policies, or are they putting out stuff that's completely random, and at odds with it?
It's difficult, isn't it?
Yes, a difficult one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think there's pros and cons. I think there's risks like anything when it comes to that. But I think that maybe the medium-sized companies that may be listening to this, or the larger companies that listen to this, I think you have to make that decision, and then you have to commit to it for a period of time.
Yeah.
And to an extent, you are potentially risking, and that's why I sort of lean towards C-suite, because they're less likely, they're more committed to the company that they're in because they're C-suite. But actually, I would say, okay, well, let me pivot the question differently. If you're an employee or someone who's entrepreneurial minded or starting out, then should you just focus on personal brand? Do you think?
I don't think you should ever just focus on personal brand. I mean,
or can you run them side by side?
Yeah.
Because people know I'm Colton from Brunton Media, but they'll probably know Colton more than they'll know Brunton Media.
Yeah, I think you should run the two. I mean, that's what I would do with various clients is run the two. So you have stuff that's a bit more key messaging, perhaps, that's going out on the company side, and then stuff that's a bit more personal on the on the individual side. And then the two, there's no reason why the two can't work together. But I mean, I think going back to what you were saying about sort of staff and that, you've only got to look at what's happened with the BBC recently, where you've got employees that are putting out stuff that the BBC haven't agreed with. So, that can become part of your brand strategy, because staff do need to know where the rules and regulations kind of are with it. So, that can be included in your brand strategy as to how your staff behave when it comes to things like social media, as well as, how they behave with customers and how they look and behave on premises, etc., etc. So, the whole thing kind of ties up staff, because staff at the end of the day can be biggest advocates. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that's quite a cautious line, though, from an employer point of view, like as someone who's been employed, where I won't say their name, but I was employed, and the social media policy was basically, you can't, which I get and I'm completely cool with, you can't name us in any way, you can't talk about us, etc., which I get, but that's kind of the line I would draw, because I think the issue can come is when you're saying to someone who works for you part-time or works for you full-time, you're then saying, you can't post on social media full stop, right? I think that's when the concern is for a lot of people, because I think they would be like, well, from a civil to liberty point of view, it's like, well, no, you can't control that. But not even there. It's actually like you're now bleeding into my personal life, and like you're stopping me from developing like a potential side hustle or like a business on the side, etc. And I think, from my view at least, a employer needs to be quite cautious with how they. Like, I get it from a PR point of view. I get it. I do. But you need to be quite cautious in how you execute that, in my view, because you need to make sure that where the boundary lines are. Like, it's completely cool if you work for, like, let's just say Company X, that I shouldn't be writing as an employee of Company X. Oh, well, Company X is blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
sure.
That's the danger,
right? But if I've got an opinion, or I want to talk about something that's completely irrelated of Company X, why shouldn't I be able to put that on social? And that's why I think the kind of the to and fro, and having the and treating people like adults, right? And having the adult conversation. And it's not about like you must follow your contract necessarily all the time. It's actually people are going to make mistakes, right? And that's kind of leading into my next question, which is going to be like, we can have the brand strategy to the T, but what if I want to do something that's not on that? When it comes to marketing and output, do you think I shouldn't?
Brand strategy is really guidelines more than rules and regulations. So,
should I post about my dog, for example?
Depends whether it has any relevance, I suppose. or whether it's a nice dog.
Or, I've referenced when I'm not in a relationship in content before. Now I'm in a relationship, I've referenced that dynamic, right?
Yeah.
But my partner's not wanted to be as public as me, so I don't use her name, right? It's got nothing to do with the fact that, like, she's not cool with being on it. It's just respect out of her.
Yeah.
And saying, well, okay, well, she's not as a public person as me, that's cool. But I can still talk about the dichotomy between how I balance a business and I balance a relationship, and the how my thoughts have changed across time. But that isn't specifically business related. It's not like, what's the ROI on that? If you're just going back to the ROI thing again, it's like, well, what's the ROI on that conversation?
Those are probably the posts that will get the most, traction anyway. So I think it's just about being sensible with it. I know plenty of clients that their staff do post something we put out, or they'll reference something that's happened that they've done at work or whatever, and that's just them showing their skill set as much as anything, or success of something. I think it's one of those things that decisions need to be made. As with any aspect of branding, it's about making some decisions and setting down some guidelines. And what companies do is up to them. But,
I think to an extent it is about looking at risk and reducing risk in some ways, but also having the understanding and compassion that by putting a person in a box for the wrong person, that might mean you push them away from working for you, or etc. And you may want their talent because they're really good at X or Y, for example.
Yeah.
Do you think AI is going to change that? Do you think AI, because when we initially connected, you were talking quite a bit about AI. I think possibly wrongly in my thought process, but I think we're on similar sides in some respects, but also in different sides in other respects. So I'm curious a bit where this bit of the conversation is going to go. But do you because the trend was AI is going to take our job. The trend has now sort of evolved into someone who utilizes AI is going to take my job. What do you think?
I think that's probably right. That people that understand AI are likely to take the jobs. Yeah. I think going forward it's going to be more difficult for the people coming into the marketplace if they haven't, or people that just will not point blank refuse to learn these things, because at the end of the day it's just a tool. Yeah. It's just a tool. So, if I didn't know how to use Illustrator or Photoshop or something, I'd be, I wouldn't get the jobs, sort of thing. And it's the same with AI. AI is just a tool that speeds things up, as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think there's a lot of scaremongering around it? Do you think people are very...
I think there's a lot of hype.
Okay.
I think going forward we could... I've got a client that's in the sector, and he's convinced that they're going down the wrong route completely, with building on knowledge graphs rather than mathematics. And so it will be interesting to see over the next few years just exactly where it does go. Because if it's learning from itself and it's making mistakes along the way...
Well, that compounds on mistakes.
Yeah. And the worry is if that then gets used for things like medicine and stuff, where's that going to end up? So yes, it's an interesting one, and I've embraced it because for me it's like having an intern that I can just get to do a lot of grunt work and then go through and check everything, and it's been an extra pair of hands. So we've discussed at length how I utilize it, how I'm utilizing it, and etc. But I do feel concerned for 16, 17, 18, 20 who are wanting to skill up. Yeah.
Because the entry-level jobs will be done by a robot, whether that's AI, whether that's a physical robot that's being run by an AI, or whether that's a self-service checkout that has AI features built into it, etc. Like we can machine learn it. All these they're kind of buzzwordy. They're actually ways of describing the inside tech. Yeah. In reality, it's technology taking and making stuff more efficient. That's actually what we're talking about. The concern, in some ways, but then the other side of it is like actually the opportunity. Because like if you're 18, 19, 20 and you become really good and really efficient with utilizing AI tools, then you'll be able to jump ranks that like you wouldn't be able to. So I think there's, I'm curious to see where it's going to be. Like you, I'm very curious to see where it's going to be in the next couple of years. I wouldn't and I wouldn't say to anyone listening as well, don't utilize it for everything.
Yeah.
The analogy I've started using now is use it to sharpen your knife.
Yeah.
And then still use the knife yourself.
Yeah.
In the same way you wouldn't use a hammer to put up a set of shelves.
Yeah.
You use a screwdriver.
You need to know how to do the process that you're getting it to do.
But also there's a cognitive side of it as well, which has been discussed a bit, but not as much. If you're using AI to do your thinking for you, you'll be ceased to be able to think.
Yeah, exactly.
Which for me isn't too much of an issue because I use it to do the stuff I already know how to do.
Exactly.
And then I can then think about the larger scope stuff.
Yeah.
So my brain, and I'm also someone who's now forcing myself to read a physical book, right, as well, because I'm aware of the cognitive stuff that I'm now not doing because I'm utilizing technology.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to balance it deliberately.
Yeah.
But I guess the question is like, is there like, when you look at branding, when you look at what branding feels like, looks like, sounds like, is AI potentially going to change that, adapt that, like potentially ruin it, potentially destroy it? Because some people just use it. Some people are just type into ChatGPT, write me a social media post, enter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But then, who are they actually talking to? What are they trying to say? Those are the things that you need to understand before you would then use it for writing social media posts and that. I mean, it's a shame that they are focusing on the creative side of things rather than, what we really need, which is care workers and, bots that can look after elderly in their own homes and stuff as a, support and a companion and, a safety line and all the rest of it. But we're not anywhere near that because that involves a whole plethora of abilities that AI just hasn't got and is way off.
You need to be able to empathise, etc., etc.
Yeah. So it's just a shame that they just seem to be focusing on the creative sides. But I mean, it's also coming in for things like law and stuff like that as well. So, I mean, are we all going to be out of jobs? Are we all going to,
Well, if you go down the Terminator Doomsday books, then yes, right? But and then we're looking at completely universal income and that kind of entire point, and no one works, etc. But I actually think the real reality will be what happened with technology, has always happened with technology, which is the jobs we did won't be as important or as done by us anymore. They'll be done by a computer, technology, or AI, or both. And then we will do strategic thinking, we will do creation, we will do that. And that's why I'm focusing solely on strategic thinking now. That's the only things I'm thinking about. That's the only things I'm creating for. That's the only things, because everything else will get commoditized. Cameras will have AI chips inside them that will be able to, like, we're already seeing it. Yeah. Like, the cameras that are coming out, they can AI track my face better than a focus puller can, arguably, right? Now, if you go to a purist in Hollywood, they're going to say, no, a human's better because it has mistakes and etc. But the reality is going to be solo setup, solo shoots like today. I need cameras that can work without me having to look at them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So I can focus on talking to you. That will be where the game changers are. Yeah. Because you'll have technology enhancing what I can then do on my own, which removes my costs. And I've been thinking about this a lot. It's like, well, actually, businesses have done this always. They've tried to find ways to pay people less or outsource it to other countries, and they've always looked to reduce costs as part of being a business. But it did also open up a question, which is like the counter opposite to AI, which is what role does emotional intelligence play in our branding or in business? Yeah. Which is the other side of it, which has to be humanized. Yeah. Do you lean into emotional intelligence? Is it a situation where, because I've always been very fortunate where I was brought up to understand emotional intelligence and be very emotionally in tune, so to speak. I could go down the road of like men are known to be a masculine, stoic thing, but I've noticed actually the people who are, quote, winning when it comes to social and what they're doing can lead with emotional intelligence, meaning they can lean into either the feminine energy of being empathetic and understanding and that kind of thing for periods of time, and then also then transition and shift into the go-getter, stoic, I've got shit to do, fuck my feelings, it doesn't matter, I'll deal with it later kind of approach. And I think actually the people who don't sit on their morals and go, I'm a stoic man or I'm a stoic woman, but then also don't lean into the I'm a victim, the world's really difficult, and actually can balance between the two and bounce between the two and lean between the two. Will be adaptability. Will be in a position where they are more likely to win, because they won't just be, in the same analogy, smacking a head repeatedly against the wall going, well, the wall's not breaking down.
But it's a case of understanding your client in that situation, really. I mean, if you know that your client is a female of a certain age and likes, certain rom-coms and all the rest of it, you're going to have a more feminine approach when you communicate with her. Whereas the same approach isn't going to be applicable for a roughy-toughy man, is it? That's into outdoor sports or something. You've got to address it in the language that you use, the imagery that you use, and it may not be for a whole company. It may just be for a particular set of products or something for that company that you lean into those things. But then you would have an overall brand for the organisation as well. Which is, I don't know, we produce the strongest, longest, whatever toilet paper or whatever, whatever the item is, I think.
But looking into personal branding, is it actually about just being in tune to what you're feeling at the time and or what's authentic? I hate using the word authentic all the time, but authentic to you.
Yeah, I think you've got to be authentic to you.
Because there's times when I'm really busy and I'm really like, where I've got a lot of shit to do, and I would be perceived as someone who's quite stoic in that respect. Yeah. And it's not that I'm not in tune with my emotions, it's that I know to get the X amount of things done that I need to get done, I need to utilise stoicism.
But everything you would be putting out at that time would still have your tone of voice and everything, even though it might be a little bit sharpened to normal. There would still be the essence of you within that. I mean, I'm very introvert, so, doing stuff like this is terrifying. But, and I know that in some instances that can kind of come across as a little bit aloof. And it's not. It's just that I tend to stop and think about everything. If I go into a networking group or something, I'm kind of there assessing the room and everything. And it's not that I'm sort of being snobby or anything like that. I'm just processing what's going on. So, and I'm quite open when it comes to social media stuff. I mean, I don't talk about family and things like that particularly on there, but I will hint at things just because But yeah.
Do you think it's also about kind of the chapter that you're in? I've been, and again, it's kind of like, I hate using the word authentic, but it's being authentic to you because, for example, I've always been someone who talks about my emotions quite openly. I've been very, heart on my sleeve kind of thing. Like, when I'm going through shit, I'll be very open about going through shit. When things are going really well, I'll be talking about it really well, right? Like, when I'm really excited, I'm very animated and etc. But, I also don't overthink it. Right, I think so many people, they sit there and go, I shouldn't write that post because it would be perceived this way by a person I don't like. Or what if XYZ person sees it and then they think about things? Or what if they choose not to work with me because they see something? And I think actually, in the nicest way possible, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't actually matter that much. The lifespan of social media posts are very small. So it doesn't really matter that much.
But if you set yourself boundaries in the first place... Yeah. We do all have boundaries. I mean, I don't like having my face on social media. I've never been particularly photogenic, unlike my sister. But, it's just one of those things that I don't tend to do. I've always been behind the camera in front of it.
Is that an approach thing, or is that, if you're happy to share, a self-love, self-esteem thing? Do you think?
It's just me hiding, I think.
But it's what I mean by that is because I coach people on this all the time. Is that a confidence thing, as in you haven't done enough reps in front of the camera to be confident on camera?
Quite possibly, but I mean, yeah.
If so, more props to you to doing the show, because that shows that you're pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, which not a lot of people would choose to do.
Which is what I am doing this year. Yeah, I'm forcing myself to be more visible this year as a person. Because I see that there are other designers out there that haven't got my capabilities and that. And that's not me being arrogant. That's just me being sort of, open and honest. That there are, I know that I'm good at what I do.
Yeah.
So I have got to push myself out there because I can help more people if I do.
But it's also, you're kind of leading with your best foot forward and you're helping your client more so, if that makes sense, because actually by you putting yourself out there more, you know you're the best solution for them. And by you doing that more, you're doing them a favour by ensuring that they can see you.
Yeah.
And not being,
Yeah.
quote unquote, it's not to diss anyone else. It's just we might synergise better.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like tangibly you're better. Because this is the thing that people don't understand about value. I think there's misconception sometimes. It's like, Colton, you post 14 times a day. I'm like, okay, don't watch it if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, I'm putting out stuff that will be perceived valuable by a certain set of people.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Yeah.
If you don't think it's valuable, there's plenty of other content you can watch that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why, especially in an interest-based graph rather than a social-based graph, to go a bit technical, that's why just posting for the sake of posting, not just for the sake of posting, but like to get out of your own head and just do it, will always win for you. Because your output will then be your input in 3 months.
Yeah.
6 months, 12 months, depending on what you're, as long as you lead with value.
Yeah.
It's not about me going, I sell video. No, it's, this is what I found works.
Yeah.
Try it. Let me know. What do you think works? What do you not think works? And I think sometimes we get so hemmed up in, what, I'm going to put a post out, and what is it going to be perceived by? By my friends, by my family, by my sister, by my brother, by the person I went to school with, by my old crush, so on. And that stops us in our tracks. You had rebranded, you have rebranded semi-recently?
Yes. I changed the company name this year.
Why was that?
Because I did a rebrand of the brand strategy last year. So I put myself through my own process. So I knew what the brand strategy was, and the final piece really was the actual name, because these are all pieces that come together to form a brand. So what I realised was that although having done a lot of SEO stuff on the website and things like that, it still wasn't making a lot of difference as far as visibility was concerned. And the reason for that was because the name, which was The Art of Communication, which I've had since 2008 and was great in 2008, has become a phrase that's been used by so many people that you just can't get any traction. So I had been thinking about it for about 2-3 years, but hadn't really settled on anything that I felt was quite right. And in the end, I just thought, I've got to do something, and it makes sense just to change it to ArtofComms Creative, because same URL, same emails, all the rest of it. It's just a step forward. So, and everything else about the brand was already in place. And that's something that I've done with other clients as well, where they've had their business for 2-3 years or a bit more, and they've found that they wanted to have a rebrand, and we've looked at the name as part of that, because they just weren't working. I mean, some of them were long names and all the rest of it. So, and the other thing with rebranding like that is well, once you've got your brand strategy in place, it is possible to pivot with everything else remaining the same. Yeah. So it could be that you change a name, you change a product or something like that. But if you've got all the rest of it in place, that's just one element that you need to then alter. And I've had that with clients before, where I've had clients that I worked with before COVID that have had to make significant changes since. But because the strategy and everything was already in place, it just meant making some small changes, and the rest of it stayed the same. So it's not wasted ever.
I think sometimes we don't we underestimate the seasons we're in, and I think it's that as long as that branding, comms, tagline, colours, typography, camera, network, etc., served that season, then it doesn't matter if you completely change it. As long as it's then in line with what you then want to do. And the keys and the reason why I didn't mention the values there is because the values are the bit that need to stay the same in my view.
I think it can be very difficult if you do change drastically. I mean, we've only got to look at a certain car advert that changed recently and bombed.
But I would argue they changed their target demographic there.
Yes, and that was half.
Which was the issue. Yeah. Right. You could have reworded and redesigned the logo 1,000 times over, and as long as you were still talking to those same people, who cares?
Yeah. So it can be very dangerous doing that. I think you've just got to.
But that's why I think you need to be authentic when you start about your values, meaning the business. You need to install the values that you have into the business, whether it's a business brand or your personal brand or both. And then you need to be very clear on your target demographic. They can slightly tweak and change in respect to like the ideology and like the age and so on, and like maybe the income level, because especially as you scale and you're looking to make more money, the target that you had when you were looking for really small micro businesses won't be the same as when you're looking to work with medium to large, right? Yeah. Just in income.
Yeah.
But the problem that Jaguar had was they went, we have a certain set of people who we've talked to for 50, 60, 70, nearly 100 years.
Yeah.
Actually, no, man, we don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, yeah, we're not interested in you.
Actually, we're going to go over here and talk to these people who actually didn't really like us to start with.
Yeah. And that's the problem. You don't necessarily have.
And then call it a rebrand.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have the influx of new clients coming in that are the rebranded clients, and you've alienated your existing customer base.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not about being like overly political or anything, in my view at least. It's actually about understanding who you serve.
Yeah.
And actually saying if you're going to make a transition, a pivot, whatever you want to call it, are you slightly pivoting or are you drastically pivoting? And if you are drastically pivoting, have you thought about the downside and have you prepared financially to make sure the company can run for 2 years while you build the momentum on the other side? There's nothing wrong with that. You might have gone, actually, I don't align with that anymore. But instead of doing it in micro changes, what Jaguar did was, we're going to go over here. No, actually, no, we're going to go over here.
Yep.
So funny enough, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And it was then became a laughing stock on the internet, which I found quite interesting.
It was very interesting to watch. Yeah, very interesting.
And I was like, which comms manager just got fired, right? Because a comms manager got fired somewhere.
They did,
right? And
the agency got fired.
And it's like whoever came up with that idea is like, you could have done that in 2 pivots, not 1.
But you don't know what Jaguar was saying to them. So I mean, it's all being blamed on the agency. But I mean, at the end of the day,
but also did, and this could be anyone, not necessarily aimed at Jaguar, but did they want to lean into where they believe the future with political correctness was going?
Who knows?
I've always been of the view that if you don't like what I say, don't listen to it. Yeah. Right. So maybe I'm anti-political correctness.
But that's what branding is about, though. It is about not just attracting people, but also putting some people off. Yeah. And
I think for me, I've always been I have a 100% honesty policy that sometimes gets me in big trouble. All right, but sometimes with clients as well. But I think that's being more authentic to me, and I think that's actually really important because, like, if I make a mistake, I'll put my hands up and go, I'll make a mistake. Yeah. But also, if I think that the client's comms or the client's communication before the project was the problem, I'll say that this wasn't on the list.
Yeah.
I had it the other day. It's like, I did, but that wasn't on the deliverable list. So, funnily enough, it's not a deliverable. It's not to deliverable quality.
Yeah.
There's footage that exists of it, yes. But it's not to deliverable quality because we didn't agree that that was a deliverable before the project. And then I purely just focus on how can we do it better next time. I don't dwell on it. I just go, well, okay, there was a miscommunication. I don't even point the finger. I just say, well, there was clearly miscommunication there. But I think that's natural in business. And sometimes that might mean we don't work together. Okay, fine. That also might mean, actually, I think that strengthens your relationship with the client sometimes. It can go either way.
Yeah.
And I think, do you see that that's actually okay sometimes? Like mistakes happen in business, and like how does it say more about a person, I guess, in a question, about how they deal with the problem and how they deal with the mistake rather than...
Yeah.
Because mistakes are bound to happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think about a lot of it is about managing expectations. I remember years ago I did a logo for a company down in Portsmouth, and there were two partners involved, and one of them loved what I'd come up with, and the other one was completely no. He was almost stroppy about it. The guy that loved it, he came on and he said, "We've got a problem here." And so I just sort of said, you know what, let's have a meeting and we'll sit around the table and work out what's going on here. And I went down there, and funny enough, the guy who loved it scarpered. He left me with the other guy. But
love to meet you, bye.
But as it turned out, I mean, what we did is we sat down and I just sort of said to him, look, went through the various things, sort of like, what about the colours? Yeah, I'm fine with the colours. What about the fonts? Yeah, I'm fine with the fonts. So where's the problem?
So what's the issue then?
Actually, I promised someone who's an investor that we would use certain aspect in this logo, which we haven't done. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay, we can sort that. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, let's just get it resolved, and then we can move on, because but I could have just sort of said, what's going on here? That's not right. I'm a designer, I know best, and all the rest of it. But no, let's actually work.
Do you think
work on this together.
Do you think there's a level of ego there? Like, as in, you have self-worth rather than you have an ego?
Yeah, I don't bring. There's no place for an ego in design, especially when it comes to branding.
I was saying business, right? You need self-worth in business. I need to know what I'm worth. I need to know that I'm valued. I need to love myself, etc. Yes.
Yeah.
But I not sit on my high horse and go, oh, I'm an ego, this good.
No. I mean, one of the things I don't have is a particular house style.
Okay.
And I was talking to a client a few years ago, and I said to her, so what made you choose me as opposed to other designers you've been looking at? And she said, because I looked on your website and there was no logo on there that I didn't like. And she said, the other thing was, every logo was different, and it was all different styles and stuff. And she said, and bearing in mind this is just coming from me, it's not, no other staff or anything. She was kind of like, and I realised that you would actually listen to what I wanted, and I wouldn't be pigeonholed into what your house style.
Yeah.
And I thought that's actually quite a wise thing to sort of like to realise, because actually there are people out there that will do house, a particular style, and if you want that style, go to them. Yeah. But that's what you're going to get, is what she was saying. So I thought that was quite intelligent.
Do you think it's like, I mean, I see this in marketing quite a bit, where it's like, this is how we market a business, and I've always been listening to the client and listening to what they want to do, and then try to amplify that.
Yeah.
But also, I'll also say in the next breath, I'll go, well, I know why you're coming from, but that's not going to work, and here's why. Yeah. But I also come with a solution. I don't just go like, that's not going to work, bye. But I think for me, that takes a level of conviction, because also I'm putting my neck on the line, because if that thing that I've just said doesn't work, I look like a right twat. Right? Because I said your idea is not going to work, but my idea also didn't work. So do you think it takes a level, I mean, I guess to phrase it into a question, like, A, is conviction important? B, do you think having that level of conviction comes with experience and time? And then developing those instinctual, like, what works, and looking at maybe market reaction and maybe it's specifically in branding, it's like, why should we use a colour here? And using colour psychology, etc. Those things that maybe a client wouldn't think about.
Yeah. I think a lot of it does come from experience and having, seen how things have gone in the past, and just having a real in-depth knowledge of how these things work makes a difference to the outcome. But I mean, it's always a partnership between a client. It's never just me doing something. It's always a case of, right, I'm thinking through things, whether if it's a print sort of item, the technical specs and all the rest of it that we need, and what's the call to action, and what's the marketing message, who's the target audience, all those sorts of things. What do we really want to get across here? But yeah, it's very much a joint partnership. There was another client that I worked for once, and I remember I wasn't working for the boss. I was working for a managing director, and I had a meeting with this particular lady, and the boss happened to come into the room, and I was a little bit worried because I thought at the time, it's all very well working with the managing director, but if the boss then says, I don't like what you've done, where do we go from there? And he came into the room, and I just sort of like grabbed him and sort of said, project seems to be working, going through pretty well, sort of thing. Are you happy with the logo and the design work that we've done? And do you like it, sort of thing? And he said, don't matter whether I like it. He said, it's whether my clients like it. And I thought, bingo. Yeah. So, all went through easily and that, but, it's just a case of working together to get the end results that we're looking for. So understanding the results at the start, what we're trying to achieve with this.
What's the job? What's the ROI, going back to the ROI side? Yeah. And I think that's interesting because I think it's the same thing. And when you do anything, I think I had an ideal that was, I want the podcast to be like this. I want my business to be like this. I want what I do with content to be like this. But if the market reaction is, no one gives a shit, got to change it.
But a lot of people don't start off like that. I mean, I certainly didn't. I didn't know what I wanted my business to be at the very start. It was basically started because I needed to work for myself because I needed to work around childcare. And then as things have kind of progressed over the years, it's now actually, what do I want this business to look like? What kind of clients do I want to work with? What kind of hours do I want to do, and all the rest of it? That all then gets a bit more solidified. Yeah. But it's about helping clients really on their journey. I mean, that was one of the things that came out of me doing my own rebrand and my brand strategy was, the fact that I'm a people pleaser. I like to help people. And one of the things that I realised was that I can't help a lot of people on my own, but what I can do is I can enable a few people that can then go on to help other people. Yeah. So it fans out as a as a sort of structure.
Well, it has a knock-on effect. And I mean, the next question I was going to ask you is specifically about marketing. Do you think that people need to lean into more ideal action, as in executing regardless of the outcome or regardless of it's not perfect, to make the ball start rolling, rather than I'm going to sit on all my ideas and I'm going to execute when it's perfect?
I think there's got to be a level of perfection there. I mean, I don't mean perfect, but I mean, there's
you have to hit a certain standard, of course.
And, all the rest of it. There's no point putting out just rubbish for the sake of.
Well, there's no posting for the sake of posting, right? Yeah. Oh, look, I posted today.
Yeah. But if you have intention behind it, then it's better to put something out than wait for it to be.
Because when it's perfect,
well, exactly,
right? For me, imperfect action consistently will always outbeat waiting for perfection. Because if you're growing, personally growing or business growing, your definition of the word perfection will be different, right?
And what's perfect today may not be perfect tomorrow with all the changes that we've got going on around us.
And also it may not align. I've been in a very fortunate position where the business has taken me on multiple journeys, that some of which are very lesson heavy, other of which are filled with joy and filled with happiness, right? But I'm still grateful for every single one of those. And I've actually found that what I want from the business has completely changed in the now nearly 9 years I've run it. When I started, and I was naive, you could argue I was naive, I was, but I was not more naive than I am now. I was like, I'm going to grow the largest production company or the largest marketing agency in the world, right? It's going to be huge. It's going to be this. And then until you actually start having the office, having the staff, having the costs, having the stress, I was like, fucking hell, no, never mind.
Yeah.
But
what
now
success?
But I've now realigned it to be actually, okay, maybe one day, sure. But I've now stretched my time window to be, I want to do this for 40 years. I want to still be able to do this in 40 years and then see where we are. It's not about necessarily that. And I think there is a point in that, and the goal I've always had, and the reason why I still sort of lean on that goal is because if you set an extraordinarily large goal, you're constantly trying to chase the stick. Or the carrot on the end of the stick. You'll never be content with the results that you create, which means you're constantly looking to grow and develop, which I think will be a better place than, oh, well, I did it. You know, if I look at just doing 20 episodes of this podcast, oh, I've done episode 20. Done.
Now what?
I'm done.
Yeah.
I can stop now.
Yeah. But that's coming back to what we were saying before. You know, understanding where you want your business to be really determines not just what your brand looks like and things like that, but what your business structure looks like and the intentions that you make. And that's why branding is so important. That it doesn't it feeds your marketing. Yeah. Because if you know exactly who you are and what your business is and who you're talking to and the tone of voice and all the rest of it, you can go out there with confidence rather than be completely overwhelmed and scared to put anything out. But it also determines what you do on a business structure process, because do you need to buy certain equipment, do you need to get staff, do you need to get premises, what type of people in your case, what type of people are you going to have on the blog in the future, because depending on what you want to do with it depends on the type of people that you get on necessarily. So it really does, it determines everything, which is why it's so important. I mean, I don't know whether I said this, but, at the end of the day, I dealt with so many people that I went through the branding, as in logo and visual identity side of it, and they just did not know what they were doing at the end of the process. They didn't know how to post, even though I'd given them examples and things. Yeah. But by going through the strategy side of it and being with them integrated in the process of it, they've got skin in the game and they understand a lot more, and then it can be a case of they fly. They absolutely can fly. I mean, I've got a couple of examples where one business we did, we were talking about it, doing brand strategy for about 3 years. Established company, they do law, sort of business law, HR, and health and safety for businesses and that. And it's not an online; it's a sort of hybrid. Okay. So between sort of like having lawyers and also you've got support there, but you've also got some online stuff as well. In the first 3 months of launching their new brand, they did more in sales than they had in the previous year. There's a big jump. Yeah. I've got another client that we did they're a care supplier, so helping people stay at home when, rather than going to care homes and things like that. And they were talking about long-term having property that they could set up for homes, supported living. Yep. For younger people with disabilities and that. That was a long-term goal. They bought the first property last year. Because they were focused and we'd gone through it and everything. But
this is what I mean about imperfect action. Yeah. I could have sat on my morals nearly a month ago now and said, I want a podcast that's in the studio. I want a podcast. I want a location. I wanted it. But I didn't. If I'd never executed, then I wouldn't be sat here today. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes we sit here and we go, is the podcast currently perfect? No, absolutely not. But does it do a value-based job, and can I utilize it to then show clients what's possible? Absolutely. So I then actually argue it is doing its job. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I think for me, doing the action will allow, and that's why I focus on the action step, because I'm constantly thinking, how can I compound what I'm doing? And that's it. That's the only thing I focus on. You want to get fitter, show up every day, regardless of the results. You want to get better at content, create a video every day, regardless of how bad it is or how difficult it is. You want to get better at speaking, speak every day, right? You want to get better at social media, post every day, get the data, understand what the data is telling you, then make conformed decisions, etc. And anything else in life. You want to get better at cooking, you want to learn a different language, so on. But for people who, I'm aware of time, so I think let's wrap up soon, but I like to end the episode, or around the end of the episode, I like to ask the guest specifically, if you could wind the clock back 10, 15, 20 years, what advice would you give to that person with the knowledge and with the understanding you now have?
I think it really is a case of be more visible and just get out there. It's difficult to answer that one because 10 years ago I was going through a very difficult situation with ill parents and stuff like that. So it's very difficult to kind of like think about how I could, if I could wind the clock back. But if I try and put it in the last few years, which have been a bit easier, I guess the toughest thing is actually for me is actually finding the time for my business. So you know, you end up working in the business rather than on the business, as they say. And so if I could go back a few years, I think it would be to spend more time working on the business. Because that way it gives you the brain space to actually think about what needs doing, what needs to be prioritised, and stuff. And I probably would have done my brand strategy process a bit earlier as well. So yeah, those are probably the things that would, because those are important things.
I think sometimes, especially as business owners, we're very focused on client delivery. Yeah. And client delivery is very important because it pays our bills. It keeps money coming in, right? But I think something that has allowed me to be different, perhaps, to be aware, is I've always treated Brunton Media as the highest paying client. Always.
You're unique in
right?
that.
So, and that's partly because I came from a place of I want to create my own thing so that I'm not of the mercy of a phone ringing and then I'm going to be made redundant, for example. I wanted to craft my own path that allows me to have sustainability. And I want to touch on necessarily not your story specifically, although it was difficult, but a difficult period of time. I've had them, you've had them, etc. And for people who are listening, the only advice you should listen to then is focus on getting through as best as you possibly can. If that means you don't work as hard, then don't work as hard. If that means locking yourself, like I went through some dark times and I was like, the only thing I want to do is work because it's a really, really good distraction from all the pain that I've got to deal with. Yeah. Right. And I think for me, you've got to know yourself. And you've got to do what's in tune with yourself and not, if you're looking at it from an outsider, someone else that you care about, don't judge them in what they're doing, because as long as they're in line with what their healing process is, then they're doing the right thing. Yeah. And I think it's very easy for us to go, well, you're working too much. I get where you're coming from, but that's not your place to say. Yeah. It's a different thing if it's like your partner, for example, or a parent or a friend. It's like, what they're actually saying there is, I miss you and I want to spend time with you. I don't feel like you're showing up properly, or you're not showing up as I would like, or not showing as much as I would like. That's a different thing. Yeah. To like, I'm in a dark place, I'm trying to heal. And then like one of the ways of doing that is potentially focusing on work for 12 hours a day because it's the only thing that allows me to not feel the pain as much, for example. But I just thought I would mention it. I mean, where can people connect with you? Where would you like to send people if people have listened this far?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn with a name like Christine Hammacott. I'm very easy to find. I'm the only one on there. And they can book a call if they want to have a chat with me via my website, which is artofcomms.co.uk. So.
Fabulous. And if you did enjoy this episode and you enjoyed some of the takes, etc., I'll be producing more episodes very, very soon. So thank you ever so much for coming back and listening this far in. And I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. But I'll see you very, very soon.